Hey everybody, glad you're here. This is the Chase Squirrelson Show, and I'm your host, Chase Squirrelson. And if you're listening right now, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Today's episode is one of those conversations that starts simple and then goes somewhere interesting. So let's jump in. Before we get into tonight's episode, I want to explain why I'm doing this. And what I'm doing is doing a State of the Union message by a president with ADHD. And it isn't about mocking ADHD, far from it. I don't look at ADHD as a disability. I look at it as a uniqueness where we have special strengths that other people don't have. So it's not about mocking leadership. It's about something bigger. It's about attention. And let's face it, we're living in a time where everything competes for our focus. There's constant notifications, there's outrage, breaking news, social media, people weighing in on everything. There's market volatility, there's politics, there's drama, there's people making speeches at the Oscars and people getting upset about that. There's modern world feels like it has ADHD. And sometimes I think, so do we. So I thought, what would it look like if that condition was exaggerated? If the President of the United States himself embodied the intensity, impulsivity, hyperfocus, distraction, and brilliance that so many of us experience every day. The parody is intended to be humorous, but underneath it, there's something serious. ADHD isn't stupidity or lack of intelligence, and it isn't laziness, and it isn't incompetence. It's intensity without structure. Let me repeat that. It's intensity without structure. And that's the real point of this episode. Leadership, whether in politics, business, family, the Boy Scouts, or your own life, it isn't about eliminating intensity. It's about building a structure around it. It's about turning chaos into architecture. You'll hear jokes about impulsivity. You'll hear exaggerated tangents. You'll hear absurd policy initiatives. But what I hope you also hear is this. Distraction is the national condition these days. Focus is a competitive advantage. If you struggle with attention, you're not broken. If you have a fast mind, that's not a flaw. But intensity without systems will exhaust you. I know it does me. And intensity with systems can change your life. So as you listen, laugh, but also notice where in your life are you accelerating without brakes? Where could you build guardrails? Where could you finish something instead of starting something new? This is meant to be playful, but the message is real. The state of the union and the state of your mind depends on what you build around your intensity. So let's begin. My fellow Americans, it is my honor tonight to deliver the State of the Union. I apologize in advance for my delivery. I left my written copy of this address in my office, and the teleprompters were installed at the wrong venue, so I'm winging it tonight. I will laser focus, if I can, on the threats and opportunities our country faces. But first, and this is what hit me on the way over, have you ever noticed that deer crossing signs are placed exactly where deer should not cross? I don't know why they do that. Anyway, I'll introduce 5 critical policy initiatives and address the first one third, the third one fifth, the fifth one first, the second one fourth, and the fourth one second. That's how I think. There will be my usual random historical references, a tangent about NASA. Did we really go to the moon or not, or was it a TV construction? Several stories from my childhood that have nothing to do with this, proof that there is intelligent life on other planets, and promises to circle back to topics I deviated from while forgetting to circle back. I will exaggerate at times, and I'll hyperfocus on at least one obscure policy, and I'll describe my grand vision for the future of our nation with no implementation timelines whatsoever. And throughout, I will sometimes divert into thoughts like, why do octopuses have 3 hearts? Now, critics say this presidency feels chaotic, to which I say, have you seen the modern world? We live in a time of constant notifications, breaking news every 11 minutes, even breaking news that informs us that there is no breaking news. Markets reacting to tweets, algorithms deciding what you're angry about today. And if this presidency feels scattered, it's because the country is scattered. I am not the anomaly. I am a reflection of what's happening. We must address the real crisis in this country, and it's a crisis of attention. We cannot build a nation if we cannot sit through a meeting. We cannot govern if we can't tolerate boredom. We cannot unify if we interrupt each other every 6 seconds. We need focus and we need unity. I'm going to take a time out now from this address, and I don't mean to interrupt the president's address, but let's be serious for a moment. ADHD doesn't mean incompetence. How far from it? It means intensity without structure. So what does ADHD leadership actually look like? Well, there's a high upside. There's visionary thinking, big picture ideas, risk tolerance, charisma, energy, and crisis performance. But the downside is poor follow-through, impulsivity, distraction, emotional volatility, and policy whiplash. We ADHDers also need to look at ourselves as people who can make a difference. History is filled with visionaries who launched startups that changed the world. People like Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, to name just a few. They were successful precisely because they were not conventional thinkers. And while I'm at it, here's an interesting question. Is modern politics built for ADHD? And why not? After all, it's filled with 24-hour media, social media dopamine loops, constant crises, sound bites over depth. Modern politics rewards fast reactions, emotional intensity, and dramatic shifts. So that's very ADHD compatible. Hyperfocus can be a superpower. Yes, it can. An ADHD president might ignore 90% of the briefings he's in and then fix the 10% no one even noticed. I can hyperfocus on one war, one economic lever, and one innovation. Could be AI, space, or even energy. But the rest, chaos. Also, my cabinet can take the part of executing function. A real POTUS has the vision and is charismatic and controls the narrative, while his cabinet functions as the prefrontal cortex, the impulse regulator and the systems integrator. The State of the Union isn't about the president's brain. It's about the system around him. ADHD leadership can work if it builds structure around intensity. That's true in politics, business, personal relationships, or your own life. It's the structure that gives the vision its weight. Now back to the speech. My fellow Americans, tonight I'm armed with bullet points and prepared remarks, but I cannot guarantee that I will follow any of them. But that's ADHD leadership at its core. Now let's talk about inflation. But first I have to share that last night I was watching a Western on TV, and it struck me that after a brutal fistfight scene, the actors never had any damaged teeth. I mean, they can be hit squarely in the mouth with a muzzle of a rifle, and they still have perfectly aligned teeth. I mean, they can be hit squarely in the mouth with a crowbar, and they still have perfectly aligned teeth. How can that be? Anyway, back to inflation. You elected a president with ADHD. That means I had 47 original ideas about how to deal with inflation before you even had breakfast. But bear with me, I can lose my train of thought mid-sentence. I start with infrastructure bills, then pivot to space exploration or the dangers of using Roundup pesticides. I can hyper-focus on agricultural soil reform for 72 straight hours and forget to sleep, and then worry about why I have excessive nose or ear hair. Before I get to the economy, I would be remiss if I did not talk about foreign policy. We are engaged in delicate negotiations abroad. I personally read all intelligence briefings. Well, to be honest, I skim them, but with some intensity. Sometimes I hyperfocus on one paragraph for 45 minutes. Because of that, I can connect dots that others fail to see. For example, did you know that geopolitical instability often correlates with the disappearance of shopping mall fountains? Fascinating stuff that stunned my advisors, but let me tell you something important about having ADHD. It's not a deficit of intelligence. It's a surplus of intensity. It's not a lack of ideas. It's having difficulty applying brakes between them. In America, as a society, I think we have been driving without brakes for quite some time. Now, before I continue, it struck me this morning that I don't know why squirrels and birds aren't electrocuted by power lines. So, of course, I started Googling that puzzling fact before my iPhone battery ran out. Anyway, back to the economy. An ADHD president runs the economy like this: big vision, massive ambition, sudden pivots, moments of brilliance, moments of what are we doing and why are we doing it? But here's the upside. ADHD leadership thrives in chaos. In America right now, yes, we are living in chaos on steroids. There's global instability, technological revolution, AI acceleration, and enormous amount of information overload. In times of stability, you want a manager. In times of disruption, you want someone slightly atypical. Let me be serious for a moment. The State of the Union is not just about policy. It's about cognitive capacity. We are not just facing economic pressure. We are facing attentional collapse. We scroll more than we think. We react more than we reflect. We can destroy more than we can build. And the real frightening thing is this: our enemies love it. While they plan to corner the market on rare earth minerals or a pulse bomb that could disable our country's electrical system, they want us distracted and arguing about what gender can use which bathroom, what pronouns are acceptable or not, or if a man can have a baby. Or should we open our borders and let everybody in? Or should it take 627 days in California to begin the construction of a house, which, by the way, when it took only half that time to build the Empire State Building? Or about how angry debate about what the velocity should be for toilet flushing. But if I have ADHD, then our country does too. Now here's where things get interesting. I can hyper-focus on what's truly critical. Instead of obsessing about how many genders there are, I can zone in on the national debt or domestic terrorism. Because when something important captures my attention, I will not eat, I will not sleep, I may not even blink. That is how we reform things. That is how we build. That is how we modernize. Because when ADHD locks in, it doesn't drift. It continues to drill deeper and deeper. But here's the catch. Hyperfocus can be selective, which means if I'm focused on building high-speed rail at 3 a.m., I might forget to answer England's Prime Minister's phone call. Now let's talk for a moment about my cabinet. You might think of them as advisors. They are not. They are my prefrontal cortex. They are the Solomon part of my triangle. They help me decide whether to delegate to Marcus or Ziggy. The Secretary of State moderates my impulse to control the entire world. The Treasury demands attention to long-term planning, such as dealing with our national debt. And my Chief of Staff, he's Adderall with a briefcase. Leadership is not about being perfectly regulated. It's about building regulations around me. ADHD presidents take risks. We push bold reforms. We overcorrect. We occasionally sign executive orders on napkins, but risk is also innovation. Every breakthrough began with someone who couldn't stop thinking about it. Our greatest threat is not inflation, not foreign adversaries, and not political division. It is fragmented attention. We cannot build a nation if we cannot hold a single thought. Infrastructure is not just roads and bridges. It's routines, it's discipline, it's boundaries, and it's focus. A nation without infrastructure collapses. A mind without structure drifts. As a nation, we are not broken. We're just overstimulated. Let me be clear. This administration has launched 47 major initiatives. Some of them are about energy. Some are about infrastructure. Some about cybersecurity. One of them might even be about the disappearance of bee colonies in Africa, because bees are extremely important. Pollination is basically a supply chain for plants. Where was I going with this? So in the coming year, we will simplify, we will clarify, we will focus, and we will finish what we start. Let me speak plainly. ADHD is not incompetence. Again, it's intensity without structure. In America, you are intense. You are creative. You are ambitious, and yes, you are occasionally all over the place. But when this nation focuses, nothing can stop us. So here's our commitment. Be distracted by fewer shiny objects. Finish more projects. Have clearer priorities. Longer attention spans. We will build bridges, not just physical bridges, but bridges between ideas, bridges between parties, and bridges between distraction and discipline. Tonight, I announced the establishment of the National Brake Installation Program. America has plenty of acceleration. We now must install brakes. We need to require a pause before sending an angry tweet. Take a 5-minute delay before public outrage, and a 24-hour delay before starting a new initiative. My fellow Americans, an ADHD president is not the problem. An unstructured system is. Our union is strong and restless and brilliant. It just needs structure. And don't you fret, never bet against the United States of America. Good night, my fellow Americans. God bless you, and may God bless America. Oh, if anyone is listening to this delivery, could you please email me tomorrow morning and remind me of what I promised tonight? If this episode hit home, don't keep it to yourself. Send it to someone who'd get it. You can follow the show so you don't miss the next conversation. And if you feel like it, a quick rating helps the show a great deal. Either way, I appreciate you being here. We'll talk soon.
This podcast is for informational purposes only. The content reflects personal experiences and opinions and is not a substitute for professional medical, psychological, mental health, or legal advice. Flint Rock LLC, the hosts, and guests make no representation or warranties and assume no liability for decisions or actions taken based on this content. Always consult a qualified professional regarding your own situation.